But we have been visited and interacted with, and
Yes.
I have seen things that I didn't even know were otherworldly whenever I was a kid, and in healing sessions too.
Yeah.
So once I was having a session with Billy, and it was a healing session, and I see all kinds of things intuitively. And he will sometimes ask me, what are you experiencing in this area, blah, 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 because I can see there's the psychic surgeons of the light.
Oh, sure.
Sometimes you see them coming in, working with whomever is working on you. And then this one particular time, I was laying on the table and he's doing his work, and I see 3 praying mantis looking things lift the roof of my house up like this, and they were just looking in like this, and because normally I'm very quiet and relaxed and meditative, and he's like, what? Because my energy shifted so dramatically. I'm like, WTF, one for each.
Yes.
And he's like, what's going on with you? What are you experiencing? And I told him. He's like, oh yeah. He said, well, it makes sense. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? He said, it makes sense that they're outside of your house. I said, why? And he said, because I already told them in my opening prayer that they were not allowed in the room with us.
Interesting.
I'm like, what did you say, girl?
Yeah.
And so, but they were outside of my house, and I psychically saw them lift the roof up of my room, and then head, like Petticoat Junction. And they would just sit up there and watched, and they stayed there the whole time. And in the same session, I saw this ant-looking thing that was about 8-9 foot tall.
Yeah.
So I saw the praying mantis. I've seen what they call the grays. There's the big grays. There's the medium grays. There's the small grays, and then there's the small, medium, and large grays. I'm just telling you.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, what were some of your experiences?
Well, tell me about how did you see the little grays, whatever?
I saw the little grays when I was a little boy. And we had moved into a trailer. And we had all of this land. So it was all woods. So we had to clear it.
Yeah.
And so we'd spent a week clearing it, bulldozing and everything, then pulled the trailer down there. From the first time we moved that trailer down there, at that time I had a room to myself, and then Bobby and Terry had a room before my baby brother was born. And almost nightly, I would see this thing. It was shorter than me. It was literally, it couldn't have been 4 foot tall. And if this is the frame of my door right here, this is what I would see outside of my door every night.
Really?
And then it would go.
Really?
And I'm like, no, ma'am. And
have a big old head?
Had a big old head, big old eyes. I've sketched it a lot.
Yeah.
And it finally told me its name was Amedius.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And fast forward to, I put up with that my whole life. And then when I was in my 20s and 30s and started getting ready, so like, oh, yeah, you've been visited by the Greys and the Pleiadians. And I didn't know any of this, by the way. And I was like, oh, Lord, you cuckoo.
You're cray-cray.
For Cocoa Puffs. And they would tell me all these experiences I had growing up and how they were other off-planet beings that were coming and observing.
Yes.
And I was like nuts. Fast forward to after my mom passed away, I was talking to my brother Terry, and he said, can I ask you something weird? And I said, sure. And he said, when we were little kids and we first moved into that trailer, did you ever see anything peeking into your room? We never talked about it. He said, my whole childhood, that little effer would peek around. He said, I would just throw the covers over my head.
Oh, interesting.
We both saw the same thing. Yeah. And neither one of us knew.
Yeah.